Uxoricide is the act of killing your wife. Like the term mariticide, it's gender neutral and can apply to same-sex and heterosexual relationships. A UN report estimates that in the year 2017, 50,000 women worldwide were murdered by their partner. They also reported 35% of women have experienced physical and sexual violence at the hands of their partner. If you or someone you know is suffering from domestic abuse, whether they're male or female, we ask that you please speak out against this. Number 5. Harold Henthorn surprised his wife, Tawny Henthorn, on their 12th wedding anniversary with a hike to Colorado Rocky Mountains Park. The pair planned to hike from Deer Mountain to Highlands Ranch in what should have been a peaceful day together, but that's when Tawny was involved in what seemed to be a tragic accident. Or was it? Tawny fell 128 feet to her death off the side of a cliff after she tried to take a photo of something just over the edge. Sadly, she lost her life and fell. In a 17-minute-long 911 call, Harold can be heard asking for a helicopter and mountain rescue to come to their assistance immediately. Police noted that Harold was oddly calm during the call, calm for a man who just witnessed his wife fall to her death from a large drop. Somehow, Harold scaled the 128-foot cliff and reached his wife's body and attempted CPR, but sadly he was too late. Tawny's death was not a tragic accident, but a well-planned, callous attack by her husband. Harold couldn't give investigators a straight answer as to why he had a map with an X marked exactly where his wife had died. He gave them many different reasons, one being that he wanted to mark spots of hiking trails they could bring their daughter on. Thankfully, investigators saw through his lies and immediately Harold became a suspect. Even Tawny's family first thought that Harold had killed her. They commented that the pair had wed just 9 months after dating, and the relationship seemed to go downhill very quickly. Harold was extremely controlling. He made her move from Mississippi to Colorado, and Tawny wasn't allowed to speak to her parents alone on the phone. Harold always did most of the talking. After the evidence against Harold mounted, he was taken to trial where he was found guilty of first-degree murder. The court documents mentioned that he was charged with first-degree murder as there was evidence of premeditation and malice. Harold Henthorn is serving a mandatory life sentence for the murder of his wife, Tawny Henthorn. Investigators are now also looking into the mysterious death of his first wife, Sandra Lynn. He made numerous appeals against his sentence, but these have all been denied. Number 4. Data collected from a woman's Fitbit is being used as evidence in her murder trial. The death of Connie Deblieux in 2015 was an ongoing case until 2019, when, thanks to physical evidence and information from Connie's Fitbit, police were able to solve her case. Her husband, Richard Deblieux, has been charged with the murder of his wife, as well as tampering with or fabricating physical evidence and providing a false statement to police. According to Richard, on December 23, 2015, an intruder described as being 6'2" in all camouflage, wearing a mask and gloves, broke into the house he shared with Connie, tied him up, and proceeded to torture and stab him. When Connie returned home, she was instantly shot by the intruder. The issue is that Richard only had minor injuries that didn't support his claim of being tortured. Nothing of value was taken from the house, and there were no signs that a third party had been at the residence. Richard's story slowly started to unravel, piece by piece. That's where the Fitbit data comes into this case. According to the data recorded on December 23, 2015, Connie was active for an hour after she supposedly had been shot dead by the intruder. Between 9:40 and 9:46 a.m., Connie was posting to her Facebook page when, according to her husband, she'd been shot dead at 9 a.m. Connie's total distance recorded between 9:18 a.m. and 10:05 a.m. was 1,217 feet. However, the distance from her car to the place where she was found dead was only 125 feet. So how had she walked an additional 1,092 feet if she was deceased? With the evidence mounting firmly against him, police charged her husband Richard with the murder of 39-year-old Connie Deblieux. Police uncovered a motive shortly after her tragic death when Richard was being interviewed in the hospital. He admitted to police that he'd been having an affair and had gotten the woman pregnant. Richard Deblieux was due to go on trial in mid-March of 2020. However, his court hearings have all been suspended due to the pandemic. Once it's safe to do so, the state of Connecticut will resume the murder trial against him, and hopefully justice will be served. Connie's friends and family gather every year on December 23rd to celebrate her life. They want Connie to be remembered for the bright, beautiful person she was, and not just as a victim. One friend told the Hartford Journal that she was the mayor of Birchview Drive. Whenever somebody was sick, she was the first to show up at their house with a home-cooked meal. She used her free time to volunteer and raise money for the Boston Children's Hospital. Number 3. The case of Heli Crafts takes us to Connecticut, USA. Heli Crafts was a 39-year-old flight attendant originally from Denmark. When Heli met American Airlines pilot Richard Crafts in the 1970s, she thought she'd hit the jackpot and met the man of her dreams. The two married in 1979 and had 3 children, both while working in their successful airline careers. To the outside world, the marriage seemed perfect. 2 people working hard to give their children the best start in life, but sadly, this was far from the truth. Heli had discovered, with the help of a private investigator, that her husband was having multiple affairs with women that he worked with. Infuriated, Heli met with a lawyer in order to start the divorce proceedings in 1986. Heli would never get to finalize the divorce, and she was last seen alive on November 18, 1986, after friends had dropped her off at her Newton, Connecticut home. The next morning, her husband Richard took their 3 children to his sister's house, while both he and Heli were due to be at work. Friends and family both became worried as over the coming weeks, they'd heard nothing from Heli. Richard gave a plethora of excuses, such as she was visiting family in Denmark or that she was on holiday in the Canary Islands, but none of these stories added up and concern grew for Heli's safety. Richard was known for his explosive temper, and Heli even remarked, "If something happens to me, don't think it was an accident." Due to the uncertainty of her whereabouts, she was reported missing until December 1st, 1986. It took police a while to kickstart their investigation, but when they did, they found horrific pieces of evidence. Inside the Crafts' house, they found blood on the side of the bed, along with a credit card receipt from Richard that showed he'd purchased a large freezer, a chainsaw, and a wood chipper around the time of Heli's disappearance. Thanks to the brave testimony of a local farm worker, Joseph Haim, police were able to finally piece together what had happened to Heli Craft on November 18, 1986. During that evening, Haim revealed that he saw a truck with a wood chipper parked near Lake Zor. That truck and wood chipper had been rented by none other than Richard Crafts. Examination of the area uncovered fragments of human bone, tissue, and hair that all matched to Heli Craft. Heli had died from blunt force trauma, was stored in a freezer, cut up with a chainsaw, and then fed through a wood chipper in an attempt to dispose of her forever. Richard Crafts was sentenced to serve 50 years in prison for the brutal murder of his wife Heli. As of January 31st, 2020, 82-year-old Richard Crafts has been released from prison and is now a free man. He was released due to good behavior and the fact that he participated in prison jobs. Number 2. Aaron Haim was just 3 years old when the disappearance of his mother would change his life forever. Aaron told psychologists that his father, Michael Haim, was the one responsible for his mother's death. His exact words were, "Daddy shot mommy," but no one believed him and chalked it up to the young child trying to process the loss of his mother. Bonnie Haim was just 24 years old when she was murdered at the hands of her husband, but her case sat as a mysterious disappearance until 2014. She was last seen arriving home from her job on January 6, 1993 at 7:30 p.m. She was due to visit a friend at 8 p.m. but canceled, telling her friend that she couldn't come as she and Michael had gotten into an argument. Her friend noticed that Bonnie was tearful on the phone and sounded very upset. It was also known that Michael was abusive towards Bonnie, both physically and verbally. At one point, he even slammed her hand in a car door. The next day, Bonnie's bag was discovered in a bin near the Red Roof Inn Hotel in Jacksonville, and all of her belongings, such as a credit card, ID, and keys were still inside. Things she most definitely needed if she'd run away, like her husband had suggested. A few days later, her car was abandoned at the Jacksonville airport, furthering her husband's claim that she'd run away to start a new life without him and their son. Upon examination of the car, they found that the driver's side seat was pushed too far back for someone her height to have been able to drive it. Interestingly, the seat was pushed back to the perfect length for her husband, Michael, to have been driving. Their son Aaron was adopted by the Frazier family after Bonnie was declared dead, due to her absence in 1999. It appeared that child psychologists and support workers became involved with Aaron very quickly after Bonnie's disappearance, as Michael's parental rights were terminated, as Aaron was at a significant risk of abuse, as he was the only living witness to his mother's death or disappearance. It wasn't until 2014, when Aaron was given ownership of the family home, that the truth of what had happened to 24-year-old Bonnie in 1993 was uncovered. While excavating in the back of the garden, Aaron found the skull of his mother along with the rest of her remains and a .22 caliber bullet. Due to new developments in the case, Michael Haim was charged with his wife's murder in August of 2015. Witnesses in prison testified that Michael had admitted to killing his wife before burying her in the back garden. Michael pled not guilty, but was ultimately found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. If not for the insistence of her son Aaron and the testimony he provided to her death, Bonnie may have never been found and justice may have never been served. Number 1. Lindsay Wilson was just 17 years old when she married Mitchell Kwai in 1995, after they'd been together for around 6 weeks. Lindsay was heavily pregnant at the time that she married Mitchell, and 6 weeks after their wedding, her daughter Robin was born. A year later, Lindsay was pregnant again. However, she decided not to carry on with the pregnancy, much to the anger of her husband. Arguments followed, and Mitchell walked out on Lindsay. By Christmas of 1996, Lindsay had decided she'd had enough of Mitchell and started divorce proceedings. However, Mitchell was able to weasel his way back into Lindsay's life after just 5 months. Time passed, and Lindsay was 4 months pregnant with their son when the arguments began again. This time, they were violent. In October of 1997, Lindsay and Mitchell's son was born. In a time that should have been filled with joy, though, Lindsay started to record Mitchell's violent behavior in her diary. Mitchell Kwai was back and forth 7 times until the 19th of April 1998, when Lindsay kicked him out for good. By the summer of 1998, Lindsay had found a new home with the help of Sefton Women's Aid. On their son's first birthday in October of '98, Lindsay and Mitchell decided to give it another shot and got back together, despite her family voicing their concerns. Good times didn't last long for Lindsay and Mitchell. On December 22nd, Lindsay and her sister went out for a drink. When they arrived home, Lindsay passed her a note saying, "Please help me, get me out of here." This is the last time that her sister would see her alive. On the 13th of December, Lindsay and her mother, Linda Wilson, met up to get Christmas decorations. Linda dropped Lindsay at the corner shop to buy some cigarettes. Once Lindsay got back to the car, she refused to get back into the car. She gave her mom a hug and a kiss, and this is the last time her mother ever saw her. On Christmas Eve in 1998, Mitchell went around to his in-laws' house to collect Christmas presents for the children. This was noted as odd by her family, as it was well known that Mitchell and Lindsay's family did not get along. By New Year's Eve of 1998, Lindsay had not been seen by the family for weeks, but she'd not been reported missing. On February 5th, 1999, a social worker was concerned about Lindsay's welfare. They noted that Lindsay's last reported sighting was on the 13th of December 1998, which is over 54 days ago. Mitchell Kwai had claimed that Lindsay had walked out drunk on Christmas Day and that she was spending the day with someone else, a fact her family hugely disputed, stating that Lindsay would never walk out on her children, especially not on Christmas Day. In April of 1999, Mitchell was charged with fraud after he was found to have cashed in Lindsay's housing benefits. Charges were dropped due to a lack of evidence, even though Mitchell admitted to forging Lindsay's signatures so that he would be able to keep the house for the children since Lindsay had run away. In the year 2000, there was a huge break in the case as circumstantial evidence was being investigated. The police had to investigate every avenue and prove that Lindsay did not in fact run away and start a new life as suggested by her husband. Kwai was becoming increasingly cocky and confident that the police would not be able to close in on him and convict him of any involvement in his wife's disappearance. He was even so cocky as to ring up the police and ask if he was still a suspect and if they'd ever had a case of someone being murdered but had nobody to prove it. June 8th, 2000 was the turning point in the disappearance of 21-year-old Lindsay. Police cars swarmed around the house that Mitchell and Lindsay once shared with their 2 children, as Mitchell was taken to Liverpool Police Station for extensive questioning. For 36 hours, police painstakingly interviewed Mitchell, to which he simply answered no comment. Despite this, Jeff Sloan charged Mitchell with the murder of Lindsay, leaving Mitchell stunned. Mitchell was then transferred to a prison cell where he quickly changed his tune and confessed to murdering his wife. He also implicated his brother Elliot, who helped him dispose of Lindsay's body. He also drew a map where he dumped Lindsay's body parts. Mitchell claimed that he snapped and strangled her. He placed his hands around her throat for 20 minutes and left her lifeless body on the floor. He then placed her body on the bed before wrapping her in bin bags and moving her to the loft, where he then stabbed her 7 more times and drained her blood. One body part was found at the back of a go-kart racing track where Mitchell once worked. Other parts were found near a railway embankment on a path to a house where Mitchell had once lived. In court, 28-year-old Mitchell received 17 years minimum for the murder of his wife. His parole has since been denied numerous times. Elliot received 7 years for helping his brother dispose of Lindsay's body. Mitchell Kwai has made frequent applications to be given a chance at parole. Lindsay's family has been the biggest campaigners on her behalf and have done their best to ensure that the monster stays behind bars. Luckily, Mitchell has been denied parole as of 2020. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.